Text Talks.
Hello and welcome to Text Talks, and today we're doing a podcast on Hinduism, and the topic is Vaishnava, Shaiva and Shakta / Shakti traditions. So I'm going to hand straight over to Katie with the question, what do those words mean?
Yeah, so it's a heavy title, Vaishnava, Shaiva, Shakta. They're basically theologies or philosophies or schools of thought, but they're traditions within Hinduism that have different theologies, basically. They each have different themes, different deities that they focus on, different texts, different traditions. So, yeah.
So, is there one that is more dominant today than any of the others?
Yeah, so the biggest tradition within these three is Vaishnava. Now, Vaishnava is the tradition that believes that Vishnu, the god Vishnu, is the supreme being. He's no longer God with a little g, he's viewed as God with a capital G. He is the God. It's not just one of many gods, he is the God. So how I refer to that is Vishnu is the supreme being in this tradition. So I'll tell you a little bit about who Vishnu is. So he is the preserver god, so he is there to preserve the world, to protect the world, and so often he's associated with preserving Dharma. And how this tradition is kind of demonstrated is through his avatars. So he often comes down as an avatar rather than coming down in his divine form. He comes down in a human incarnation.
Mm-hmm. So when you say avatar, I have two things in my head.
Okay.
The first one is the airbender.
Okay.
And the second one is the Na'vi people from Avatar the movie.
Yes.
Does the word avatar have any links there? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, so the root of avatar, the word, literally, is from the Sanskrit, so avatara.
Oh, cool.
So those are absolutely really helpful media things to think about. I can't say I've seen Airbender, so I can't comment on how relevant that is, but certainly the James Cameron movie, Avatar, it's a very similar process. It's, you are using another body that's not your original body to go on and do certain actions, live a life maybe. It's your kind of bringing your person into another body and living through that body, even if it's just temporarily.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Vishnu's different avatars, is really important in Vaishnava, and he's got a lot of avatars, but he's got 10 primary ones, and these are called the Dashavatara. So I won't list them all. There's some different animals. He's a fish, he's a giant tortoise, he's a boar. He's also Rama from the Ramayana, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. He's Krishna, so he appears in a lot of texts, but most famously the Bhagavad Gita.
Dr. Black's going to do a talk on that at some point, right?
Absolutely, so I definitely recommend checking that out for a little bit more on Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita.
And to also plug a bit of Buddhism, he is also known as the Buddha, right?
Yeah, one of his incarnations is the Buddha, which is really interesting. A bit of, cross-comparison between religions here. But yeah, I'm going to talk about his incarnation as Rama. So before I said that Vishnu's often seen as a preserver of Dharma. And if you've listened to last week's podcast on Dharma, you'll know that the Ramayana is all about Dharma. So definitely go listen to that if you haven't already. So as a preserver of Dharma, one of Vishnu as Rama's role is the triumph of good over evil. So this is another really strong theme of Vishnu's incarnations and avatars. And that is really, really clear in the story of how Vishnu came to be incarnated as Rama. So in the beginning of the Ramayana, we learn about the wicked demon Ravana, and he is terrorizing the world. And in his chaos, he's stomping around, he's like burning in his body because this like demon, it's kind of like this fiery demon is like burning, and he's in danger of scorching the world. And so the gods see that he's doing this and they panic and they're like, oh, we need to stop him, otherwise he's going to, destroy the world. So the gods offer him a boon to stop. So a boon is a wish.
Mm-hmm. So a bit like bribing him to stop.
Yeah, exactly. Bribing him to stop. So they offer him this boon of his choosing. And so Ravana does the classic, when someone says you can have 3 wishes, get 3 more wishes. He asks for immortality. So like the biggest thing you could possibly ask for. And that's a bit too much for the gods, they can't be giving around immortality, because if everyone asks for it, then, what happens to the world? So they say, okay, we can't give you that, but anything else. So he tries to almost trick this limit on what boons he can ask for. So he doesn't ask for immortality. Instead, he asks that he can't be killed by spirits, or by demons, or by gods. And he just lists those because, he's this very great 10-headed demon. He doesn't, what else is going to kill him? It's going to be a spirit, it's going to be a demon, or it's going to be another god.
Why worry about anything else?
Exactly. But then he carries on and he stops trying to scorch the world, but he's just being a pretty big nuisance for the rest of the world and causing lots of terror, lots of destruction. And so the gods think, we really do need to stop him. But they know that they can't kill him. And, nothing else on Earth at the time looks like it's going to be able to kill him because he can't be killed by demons, he can't be killed by spirits. So they go to Vishnu and they ask Vishnu if he would become human so that he, as human, can go on to kill Ravana. And therefore, that's not, he wouldn't be a god killing Ravana, he would be a human. And then Ravana did not ask that humans can't kill him, so technically that's his weakness.
Interesting.
It is also interesting because another being that he didn't list was monkeys, and monkeys play a really big role in the Ramayana, so his demise comes down to monkeys and humans. Hanuman, that's it, yeah. Who's actually an incarnation of Shiva, but we'll go on to Shiva later. But yeah, Vishnu is incarnated as Rama. He's born into a kingdom. He's, born as a child, obviously, so he doesn't go and kill Ravana straight away. He has to grow up, has all these adventures, gain all the necessary skills, and eventually, through a various series of events, he kills Ravana, and thus his duty on Earth is fulfilled.
Cool. Doing all this, does he know he's an avatar?
Okay, that's a really interesting question, actually. So, there's lots of different tellings of the Ramayana, and in some he does, in some he doesn't. In Valmiki's Ramayana, which is the oldest literary version of the story, it's acknowledged at the very beginning and at the very end, but throughout he acts completely human. He doesn't give any indication that he's aware of this higher divine plan that he's part of, or that he's Vishnu. So yeah, he is a human. In some Ramayanas, however, especially the ones as we start to move a little bit later on, so kind of building up towards the medieval period, when the Vaishnava movement is getting more and more popular, then Vishnu's role starts to become more and more prominent in the story, and he starts to be either a lot more aware that he's Vishnu, or sometimes giving very philosophical teachings. Often his teachings kind of resemble the sort of divine revelation that we might see in the Bhagavad Gita, or other texts that have a very strong bhakti, so devotional theme. So the later Ramayanas that have a stronger Vaishnava presence or influence, he is a lot more aware, and he'll even give out divine knowledge. But yeah, he still just thinks he's human.
So, is Shiva then basically the same, but with Shiva as the supreme god?
Sort of. That's definitely where to start with it. The biggest difference, by all means, is between Shaiva and Vaishnava, is that Shiva's the supreme god rather than Vishnu, just as you're saying. There's a little bit more to it as well, however. So, starting with Shiva, he is in the way that Vishnu is the preserver god, Shiva is the destroyer. Now, that sounds a bit negative, but I think it's important to remember that it's not meant to bring such negative connotations, because, depending how you think about it, with destroying also brings the opportunity for something new to be created or developed. So, try not to bring that kind of negative connotation to destruction. So Shiva is the destroyer god, and another really important theme in Shaiva is renunciation, and the monastic life is often recommended in Shaiva texts. So that's something that's quite different. So when we talk about Vaishnava, one of the most important things we talk about is that preserving of Dharma. Vishnu comes down to triumph over evil with good. In Shaiva texts, it's more about renunciation, asceticism, meditation. Often when you look at depictions of Shiva, he is meditating. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to talk about a Upanishad. It's called the Maitreya Upanishad. Now, this is not one of the more well-known Upanishads, but it is nonetheless a Upanishad. And the Maitreya Upanishad features a dialogue between Shiva and Maitreya. Now, I'm going to actually ask you, who is Maitreya?
Oh, man.
Because I know you talk about this in your PhD.
Well, Maitreya, from my side of things, he's a bodhisattva. Mm-hmm. So by the time Mahayana Buddhists have got hold of Maitreya, they have turned him into this all-knowing being who helps the hero of our quest on his way. But I'm not sure about in Hinduism.
Interesting. So it's a very similar theme, actually. So in this text, Shiva tells him how to achieve enlightenment. So Maitreya is a sage, but this, explains how he gets there.
Interesting.
So Maitreya asks Lord Shiva about, what is ultimate truth, basically. And then Shiva delivers this teaching in which he says that the life in us is an Atman, so that's the self, Brahman, which is that kind of ultimate reality, and also Shiva. And then he keeps saying this, I am he, like I am that. I am Shiva, I am Brahman, I am Atman. And he tells Maitreya that he should renounce, live in solitude as an ascetic, and worship Shiva. And through doing this, he will achieve enlightenment. And so this text is fairly characteristic of a Shaiva text, or the Shaiva tradition more generally, and it's about how Shiva is recommending a monastic ascetics or renunciate's life. Mm-hmm. So the key differences between Vaishnava and Shaiva, obviously, number one, in Vaishnava, Vishnu is the supreme deity. In Shaiva, Shiva is the supreme deity. But also there are other themes that go on that are just different in the tradition. So in Vaishnava, it's that conquering of good over evil, the preserving of Dharma, and also this is displayed through a very strong avatar tradition. In Shaiva, there's this theme of asceticism, and that's not always, it's not just people who are complete renunciates that follow this, but it's bringing meditation into one's life, working with that. There's a lot of Raja Yoga, which is a kind of very intense form of meditating upon oneself. Mm-hmm. And it's working on how to achieve moksha. So they're the key differences between Vaishnava and Shaiva.
And what about the third category then, the Shakta stuff?
Yeah, so again, like the other two, there's a particular deity that is the supreme being, but this time it's a goddess rather than a god, and that is Devi. Now, Devi I spoke a little bit about in the Gender Goddesses Hinduism podcast, so have a look at that if you haven't already. But Devi is the goddess. Devi literally means goddess, and she is the goddess that all other goddesses are related to, essentially. And Shakta views her as the supreme being. Now, just a note, I'm saying Shakta, but this is often also called Shakti or Shaktism. All I'd say is just make sure you check out your own course specification and just use the terminology that they use. I use Shakta because that's what I use in my PhD, but just check what is standard among your exam board and you should be okay. So with Shakta, a big difference that it's got compared to Vaishnava and Shriver is the influence of the Tantra tradition. I won't go into this too much because it's a whole big kettle of fish I don't want to open, but Tantra it kind of focuses on the subversion of the norm, so it often likes to flip things on its head, look at things in new ways, challenge tradition, all those kind of themes. So instantly, bringing a goddess into this, and goddess is the supreme being, is subverting some norms. And how I'm going to demonstrate this is actually finally bringing in my own PhD research and talking about the Adbhuta Ramayana.
Whoop!
Now, I talked about the Ramayana before. The Adbhuta Ramayana is one of those later tellings that I mentioned, and it certainly does have some Vaishnava influence because Rama's character is a lot more aware of his incarnation and being Vishnu, and he delivers some very philosophical teachings, so it's definitely got a Vaishnava influence, but much more prominently it has a Shakta influence. Now when Shakta influences a particular telling of the Ramayana, it means that Devi plays a very key role in the conquering of the demon Ravana. How that happens in the Adbhuta is that Rama kills Ravana, goes back home, then finds out that there's actually a much bigger Ravana with 100 heads or 1,000
bigger bad
heads.
Guy.
Exactly. But then he can't kill the bigger bad guy. He faints on the battlefield. Oh. So his wife Sita's been watching, and then with a kind of smile, she transforms into Kali, which is the goddess of death and destruction, related to Devi, part of Devi. And then Kali just annihilates him, Ravana, on the battlefield. And then Rama wakes up and is like, yay! And eulogizes his wife. He's really happy, he's fine, he's just happy that Ravana's dead, and he worships his wife. And that's the story, basically. It's just an extra part of the story that shows how Devi is the hero, essentially. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about the subversion of the Tantra tradition, that can really be seen here because we've got the traditional Ramayana in which, Vishnu comes down as Rama kills the bad guy. Great. Whereas the Adbhuta takes that, flips it on its head, then Devi kills the bad guy, and the feminine power kills the bad guy. And that's really representing the fact that the goddess is the supreme rather than Vishnu or Shiva or any other god.
So, interesting question. Is there any other Ramayanas you know of that are that have Shakta themes?
Yeah, there certainly are quite a few. All of them are fairly they're not as well known as a lot of other Ramayanas. Vaishnava influenced Ramayanas are certainly more well known, but there's a collection.
So
of...
the Adbhuta isn't just one deviation; it is
part
of a tradition.
There's a tradition of these Shakta Ramayanas, which are really cool. I think anyway.
Wow, well that's certainly a lot to think about. So thank you very much.
No problem. If anyone's got any questions about anything we've covered here, or any suggestions or recommendations of what you want to hear from us, get in touch. You can like us on Facebook as Text Talks, on Twitter at TextTalks1, or email us at inquiry.texttalks@gmail.com.
And so the $1 million question, what's next week?
Next week we're going back to gender. So I said in the Gender Goddesses podcast that, this is just too much. I can't cover it all in one go. I'm going to have to come back to it. So that's what I'm going to do next week, and we're going to really look at how the roles of women have developed over time. Wow, okay.
Well, that's it for us today. Thank you very much for listening. Get in contact if you have any questions, and see you next week.